what comes out clearly out of the last three presentations is the need for, I'll use the words which Eric used, leadership in customs modernization, ownership of the process, and real partnership. Real partnership. And for that real partnership, terms which have been used is government to government, customs to business, customs to customs, and customs to other agencies. That's real partnership. And I'm sure it's reflected by the composition of the audience. And when it comes to South African modernization, I think what has come out clear, they've just zeroed in on IT connectivity and also on the paperless environment which they have introduced. I now open the floor for your questions and comments. Over there, Manduna.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Calvin Manduna from the African Development Bank. I have a question for Mr. Butler. We are very interested in the regional perspective of things. And your remark that you are not interested in what can be done in 10 years' time, you are looking at what can be done now, caught my attention. It woke me up. I was dozing off. No, I'm only kidding. I was awake. But what I wanted to ask you, earlier it was mentioned by Eric that the partnerships are important. You're only as good as what your neighbor is doing. And the Mozambicans and so on have highlighted this. If you are using smartphones, but your neighbors are still with Nokia 3310, because think about it, your trucks, your own traders from your own country have to go and do business in the region. If they are going smoothly out, but stuck on the other side, then there's a problem. What are you doing at SARS to say in 10 years' time, is there a roadmap that is guiding you to say in 5 years' time, we have to have achieved this level of connectivity, be it with SACU, be it with SADC, and now also thinking of the tripartite, with our tripartite partners. What is the roadmap? What is guiding? What milestones are you looking at? This is what we want to understand. Thank you.
I'll take a couple more questions, then I'll give, yes, next to Manduna. Over there near the camera.
Thank you very much. I'm Audrey Mwala from Malawi. Mine is probably just a suggestion. I probably may have missed it in the presentation, but what I seem to be missing is any initiative to begin to look into the real issues of the tariff levels. The point I'm trying to say is that as long as we advocate this cross-border trade and we expect all the people to come and declare their goods and being tracked properly in this manner, I'm seeing one problem. Actually, the very reason why many people are not able to declare and why governments are losing money is the high tariffs, custom duty. You have so much that many people, if they load that into their production, they find themselves failing to compete. So I was just wondering whether, as a suggestion going forward, that could be one area that you could also try to work towards in order to reduce the level of taxes to the point that people will be able to import and pay taxes willingly, knowing that the very same materials that they are importing in their countries will be able to produce and they will sell, they will be able to pay corporate taxes out of that. So I find that the level of tariffs in our countries become a very big challenge for companies to bring in raw materials in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I can take one more question. Right, I think I'll ask Zaid to respond.
Firstly, thank you. It was a very good question, and I apologize if I created an incorrect impression by my statement. By me saying that SARS is looking at what we can achieve now, by no means indicates or asserts that we don't have a long-term plan. We definitely have a long-term plan. And our long-term plan is part and parcel with what we're doing in the region with SACU, with SADC, as well as with the tripartite. But we are saying we are at different levels, especially at a regional standing, in terms of the maturity or the evolution of the customs organizations in the different countries. So South Africa, as you stated it correctly, South Africa is at a different stage in its evolution of customs modernization as Malawi, as Mozambique, as Namibia, and even Lesotho. We're all at different stages. So for us to propose one solution and say, you have 5 years to get to this point, actually does not make sense. It's impractical because of the different levels and the different speeds at which the different organizations are moving. So we're saying, let's look at now what you asked. Your second question is, what are we doing? Now, what we are doing is we're engaging directly with our neighbors. We're engaging Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and Swaziland. And we're talking to them directly about how we can use our individual systems to talk to each other. So, I mean, it's a very good point. It makes no sense, and just to throw some numbers, it makes no sense for me to reduce my processing turnaround time at a border post from 20 hours to less than 2 minutes if when the trucker gets on the other side of the border, he's still going to take 2 days. It makes no sense. So we accept that, we understand that, we agree with that. We're saying, okay, how then do we assist our partners and work with our partners to actually achieve the same gains and same benefits that we've done? And we're saying, yes, interconnectivity is one answer, or is one part of the answer, but it's not the only answer. We need to look at wider, and the second question around how do we harmonize our data? How do we come up with one common tariff? So that our traders don't have to keep declaring different levels at different levels and to different organizations. So we're definitely taking a long-term view, but being more practical. How can we do something today that will provide benefit to our traders? I hope I've answered your question.
Right. I think I'll ask Eric, you want to add on that? Then I'll...
Just very briefly on the issue of the roadmap. I think this is where organizations such as the African Development Bank, regional organizations such as SACU and SADC play a very important role. Of course, the African Union as well, and with the support of the WCO. Because administrations are busy at the coalface. They've got certain pressures, challenges that they have. They need to show that they're doing things as well. I think it's the role of regional and international entities to provide administrations with the research, the backing, as Malena has mentioned, the economic competitiveness package, to have that vision about where we want to move, but at the same time for things to happen, for things to move. So that's the type of role that I think organizations such as the AFDB and others play very much in setting the tone for where we need to be going regionally as well as continentally.
Okay. Thank you. I'll respond to another issue which doesn't seem to have a taker on tariffs. I think the participant from Malawi raised the issue that there is need to reduce tariffs. And what I can say in response is within the SACU as a customs union, there are no customs duties amongst them. And when it comes to SADC, there is a tariff phase-down arrangement which started in the year 2000 and is supposed to be completed by the end of the year 2012, this year. So there is already a tariff phase-down program which should come to an end by the year 2012. But what I can indicate to you is there are a few countries which are behind. So I think earlier in the morning, there was an indication that it's almost 92%. So there is that program which is running. Right, let's go on to the next round of questions. I see the gentleman there, and then Sodwa.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank Mr. Butler for his presentation. That was an eye-opening because we have been seeing a lot of changes in the borders, but not getting an explanation where is the direction. But now at least we understand. But I just want him to clarify the EDT process, which I think they have started it sometimes, I don't know when. If he can indicate when did they started that, and then whether they are monitoring that process, and then are they maybe seeing any progress as far as it is concerned, because since it was implemented in most borders, the queue for the trucks, I think, has gone probably, I would say, 3 or 4 times it used to be before. So maybe it's because they are still learning the process. But can you give an indication when you think it will be a smooth run? Because being from Lesotho, we have seen that Lesotho has adopted your system. You know, they are handling your in fact, Lesotho is processing that very quick as compared to how the South African are doing it. Once the papers, we cross the border with the papers, it becomes very smooth in Lesotho. So can you give us a picture? When do you think it will be going to the normal? Because now the borders are congested.
Then I'll give you a chance as well before I go to Zodwa.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Kuhelang Auman from One Stop Business Facilitation Center in Lesotho. I would also like to pose a question to Mr. Butler regarding the interconnectivity with Swaziland. If you could give us an update. It was just referred earlier that there is an interconnectivity pilot between South Africa and Swaziland. The second question is just a follow-up to the earlier question. Normally, we have received concerns from the business community in Lesotho that they have to wait for 5 or 10 hours for a response that has to come from Durban when they clear the goods. So I have always been wondering, what response is this? Are the goods cleared at the border or somewhere within country? Thank you.
Then, Zodwa, I think you will be the final person to ask the question for the day.
Okay, thank you, Willie. It's not really a question, it's a comment. First, on the South African revenue presentation, thank you very much. For me, I look at South Africa as the main gateway to international markets for most of the countries, even in SADC, outside of SACU, because you Malawi, your Zambias, they also use the port of Durban for their import and export. So it's important to improve communication. What I find is that there are a lot of changes that happen in our borders that gets communicated within a short period of time, and you tell your stakeholders that that will be implemented maybe the next week, not giving enough time for the traders to adapt to the systems. I wouldn't want to blame the South African revenue authorities. Perhaps you do talk to our customs, but by the time we get the invite as the business community to come to a stakeholder meeting, you find that we're not given enough time to adapt to the new changes that are coming. And then on the issue of tariffs, I'm glad that, Willie, you tried to respond to it. But in my view, it's an issue of governance. If, as a region, we agree to a tariff phase down, why would other countries be lagging behind? To me, it's an issue of not adhering to what we have agreed to as a region. And we really need to see, to sort out that one. And the disappointment, obviously, is I don't know what word to use, but the fact that the SADC tribunal is not functioning now, because as a trader, I should be able to go there to say, you know what, I'm selling stuff to Mozambique, but as per the tariff phase down, they are not adhering to it, and what should I do? As it is now, well, I have revenue challenges as a country, so I'm not adhering to the tariff phase down. And then that leaves a big question to the commitment and of member states to the agreements that we sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Zaid, you respond?
I think on the first question regarding the EDI, the EDI system or the EDI submission channel was introduced probably in the early 1990s, Eric, around that? Yeah, around early 1990s, and that was when it first came about. But we've seen, what we realized very early on when we started customs modernization of this round, that in order for us to achieve the benefits we foresaw, we had to get more people on the electronic channel. So when we began, we were at a level of probably 60 to 70% submitting EDI from an import level, and probably a 20 to 30% from an export, I mean the other way around, exports 70 to 80, and imports probably around the same, but less than that. So we went on a concerted drive to increase the EDI submissions. And as of, when was the last check we did, was in March of this year, our EDI submissions are up to 98% across the board, imports and exports. And that includes Lesotho companies. So it has been out there for a long time. There are many companies that have ascribed to it, that have agreed to it. The agents and the service providers that we have sold. I mean, we did a review at the beginning of the year, or even when we started modernization, on whether we needed to introduce alternative channels. And the traders came back to us and said, actually, that would make it more difficult for them, because then they would have to provide for their clients alternative means of getting information to us. So EDI is definitely the choice of channel that we have. Today, we're up to 98% in terms of submissions of those. In terms of the practical and operational issues that we're experiencing, I think I wouldn't want to comment on specific examples, but a lot of the challenge that we face, particularly with the Lesotho border, is that the operational processes have been as they are for a long period of time. We haven't taken a concerted effort on both sides of the border of saying, how do we improve this process? And one of the biggest challenges we face is that South Africa is completely electronic, whereas Lesotho is completely paper-driven. The process is paper-driven. So there's no way we can say, let us give you the information to start with. So connectivity on that level was not an option. So when we met with the heads of customs of Lesotho, and we arranged with them and we spoke to them about how do we facilitate trade, not only on our side of the border, but on your side of the border as well. What they asked us to do is introduce the system, but do it in a phased approach. So the solution you're seeing in the Lesotho borders is not the full solution that you would have at the Kofontein border, at the Botswana border. And that was as a request of the heads of customs of Lesotho, because they said that their business traders and their business community was not ready for the full solution. So in terms of the delays at borders that we were previously having, you might definitely see that, because now we are actually controlling it. Whereas previously, for all intents and purposes, it was almost a free port. I think the second question was on Lesotho, from Lesotho as well. Now, question number one was on the Swaziland update. In terms of the level of connectivity, what we've achieved or what we've reached right now is we've sort of got the legal and policy process out of the way. We've got an agreement with them. We've agreed that we can exchange information. We've gone so far as giving them 1 year's worth of data from our system, and we've taken 1 year's worth of data from their system. We've done the analysis. We've seen where the data correlates, where there are discrepancies, and we're now presented with each other saying, how do we talk? I'll tell you one very important point that's holding us back. We need the UCR. We need both countries and both traders on both sides of the border to commit to using the UCR, so we have that unique identifier between us. That is one major inhibitor that we have between ourselves. But other than that, it's merely putting the cogs into place and making sure the machine works. We know what to put in place. It's a matter of taking that step and actually doing it. So we are ready to proceed to the next step. The next part of the question was response time from Durban to Lesotho. The transit regime, or in-transit or in-bond removal regime within South Africa, was one that was not included on the first phase of modernization. However, as of last weekend, we've just rolled out a trial or pilot process to Durban, Kofontein. So anybody who's in the Botswana border, in the COP14 border would have noticed a marked difference in the way we process those entries. We're actually meeting with our trade this coming Thursday to decide when we roll this out nationally. So you should notice a marked difference in the future in terms of that regime specifically. I think that was it.
Thank you, Zaid. I think the comment on why tariff phase downs take time, I think is very valid. But maybe I need to add that sometimes governments as well get pressure from the private sector who need protection. It has also happened that you get an industry, a certain cluster, approaching that we need protection. Can we go and get a derogation? Can we be exempt? So that also happens. I think on that score, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank the panel here. And let me thank you as well for asking the provoking questions. I now hand over to our MC, Oliver.